Evening, guys. How are we doing? Just wait for a few of you to join in. So a bit of a change this evening. Please just give me the thumbs up to make sure the audio is okay. I've got the directional mic on, but if you can just give me a thumbs up just to make sure you can hear me and see me, that'll be great. So, we're going to answer a few questions. So I'm on my own tonight. It's Q&A with myself. We've got about an hour. See how we go. Maybe a bit longer. Depends how the questions go. And I'm going to cover a few things as well that I've got in mind. But I'll be led by you guys predominantly. So if you've got anything that you want to focus on in particular, just let me know, and we'll cover that. So I'm just going to my head's out of frame, is it? Okay. We'll fix that, Richard. Sorry, Robert. Just bear with me a sec, guys. I'll just stand a little bit further back, if that's okay. So you should be able to see me now. So Billy P, thank you very much. Your handicap's come from 15 down from 15 to 9. Wow, that's amazing. Kevin from Canada, how are we doing, Kevin? So that should be a lot better, guys, I hope. Brilliant, great to see, great to hear from you. Barry, good. Peter, can you book lessons with me? Absolutely. If you go on the booking system, I've got some times available. I'm going to be opening some, but we've got a big release coming. I can't say any more. In the next few days, a big release. So hang fire, because there might be an offer coming. So just hang fire. Oh, I can't say any more than that. The big tease, but just in a few days we're going to be putting some news out there. But absolutely, you can stay overnight. We can put 2 days together. I've just had a guy today, Simon. He's been on the channel. We have one of his lesson videos on the channel, and he comes for 2 days sometimes. Splits it, one session each day. Today's come for a whole day. That worked well. We just finished off now on the course. So yeah, you can work it either way, but we can certainly sort out the hotel. Basically, I don't actually book it. We just put you in touch with the hotel, or I just give you the numbers and you can contact them and organise it privately. That's probably the best way. Then they can meet your specific needs and things like that. But I'll give you an idea of the best ones to go for. What about the members platform? Yeah, that is that's not the news, but that is filmed and edited, and it's just being it's just going through construction. So thanks for the question, Melted Butter. Never answered to anybody called Melted Butter before, so there's always a first for everything. Be interested to know who you are, Melted Butter. Virg, you're the best, Marcus. I'm getting a lesson one day when I'm in the UK. What are your thoughts on driver T height? Thanks, Virg. We'll come to that in a minute. Billy P, that was awesome. 15 to 9. Brilliant. Grant, have you got any new training aids coming? Grant, yes, we have. That's not the big release, though, coming, but that is in the pipeline. I've just been filming for them, to be honest. Any possibility of you coming to Japan, Jo? Yes, I'd love to come to Japan, but I've got no idea who to speak to, basically. So if you've got any ideas, please email me. You can email me at marcus@grfgolf.com, or just send me a private message on Facebook or Instagram. Just DM me, and that'd be great. I'd love to come to Japan. I've taught a few Japanese, and I've had a few guys who work in Japan who said that, yeah, there's people out there who do watch the channel, which is amazing. And I would love to go out to Japan. It's just sorting out all the normal kind of arrangements and things like that, venue, just the location to go to, and putting it out there. So that would be fantastic to facilitate that. Chipping video, Keith. Right. We'll do a bit of chipping tonight if you like. Hi Marcus, you're such a guiding light in an industry that thrives on confusion. So when are you coming to the US, especially to the East Coast? That might not be too far away. Remote lessons, B. Richardson. Yes, we can talk about that. Melted Butter, good swing question. How do you manipulate angle attack? Right, so I'm just going to read a couple of these, guys, and then we're going to work our way through it. B, how important is the extension in the backswing? Can the drop and pop happen efficiently if only active, going one direction? PS, love the channel. Grant Hurst, would you do online lessons? Ed, hello, Ed Schroeder, how are you doing? Guys, it's amazing to have you all with me, and I really do appreciate you watching, your support, and more importantly, I hope that it's really helping your game. So when I get this kind of engagement, it's so important, and it means so much, because it's all about community. We're all helping each other. Just you guys connecting with each other, helping each other. So to facilitate that is very, very humbling. It's amazing, and we just keep on moving forward with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of exercises which are linked to what you've just been talking about. Because that drop and pop, it happens every day, and if you've been for a lesson, you'll have experienced it yourself. That what you feel in here and what you're probably feeling at home doing the exercises are probably two different things. Some may be fairly similar, some may be remotely, not even remotely the same. So it's really interesting that in how you adapt what you do to perform these exercises, to achieve these, what you intend with these exercises. And what your intention is can often interfere with how you develop your awareness, because you're probably focusing on the golf swing. We're all thinking too much about the golf swing when we're practicing these swing exercises. And what we need to do is we need to perfect these movements, because the body recognizes them and it introduces them into your golf swing. It organizes it and coordinates it. So you're giving it the toolkit. That's the thing. The body needs the toolkit, and your skill set that you've developed up to date is built on this toolkit. The toolkit is your movement and how you recognize your movement, and the ability to recruit as much of that capability as possible that's in the system and action it in a meaningful way that's recognizable. So these exercises are to join the dots, create those pathways between what the body recognizes and what's happening, what's there available in the system. And then through task-specific focus, you start to organize this. And with your attention in the right place, you can start to not only develop awareness, but start to regulate what you're feeling and start to adapt it with more precision. And that's the thing. A lot of us are skipping this process and trying to just go to these exercises and think, I'm just going to think about the golf swing and try and somehow just crank this into the golf swing. Try and somehow, just like another swing exercise, I'm going to make this part of my golf swing movement. And we'll talk a little bit about adaptation and how when you adapt one thing, the rest of the system has to adapt. So we have to make sure the system is adaptable to facilitate any form of change. Otherwise, you're just adding more noise to the system, because there's a conflict there. So there's no one size fits all to this, guys, and there's no one way, no one model. It's not a model, it's just how do we find your best swing? Portland, Oregon. Robert, I'm your fixer. I've had a guy today from we've had a guy, Bob. It's not you, is it? Is it you, Bob, from today? So if it is, amazing. If not, it's another Bob. We've had a guy from Portland, Oregon today. He's been here for 2 days with George and Danny. Ed from Holland, early extension. Ed, I don't know if you know, but I'm in Holland next week. You may have seen the advertisements. It's sold out, but we might be able to squeeze an extra place in if you're interested in coming in person. Next Tuesday and Wednesday. They're one-day golf schools, so just either one of those days. It would have to be the Wednesday, but we could squeeze one more place in. I think it's fully booked, but we can make room for an extra one if you wanted to come. There's only 4 people in the group. That's why I can make one extra space, because it's very small groups, which mean you get more of an exclusive kind of personalized experience and a lot of one-to-one time. Does tempo really matter, or is that more of a natural? Is it more natural? That tempo does matter. That was me. You're on the right. Oh, right, Bob. That was me. Haha. I thought so. You're on the train now. It's going north to Edinburgh. See, we've not even started talking golf yet, but this is what I loved connecting with all you guys. It's brilliant. Mark, just curious, how do I possibly diagnose myself with regards to components? Well, the exercises that we do, the exercise is the test, and the test is the exercise. If you struggle with some of these exercises, so if you bought a GRF system, you get a 2-hour download, and in there is all the fundamental components of lateral, rotation, and vertical, and it's very much linked to the gait cycle. So I don't want to go into all this. There's going to be more coming soon. But essentially, it's recognising the component forms of what you do. And these exercises, excuse me, the exercises that you see on the channel, in the lessons, if you've been and experienced it, these identify the missing components. So if you struggle with an exercise, then it's just being mindful of what are you struggling with in terms of achieving that exercise. So what's affecting it, okay? And therefore you can start to identify the areas that are really probably missing links to those patterns, so you can't access that pattern. It's going to be some form of it, some version of that pattern, but it's not going to be probably as efficient as possible. I'm going to talk about vertical tonight, though. Just checking. We're going to talk vertical, and we're going to talk rotation, because everybody shifts pretty much. Okay, they shift with mass more than probably pressure. So we'll talk a little bit about pressure shift, but generally, if we work on two of the forces, you get the third one. It's picking the right two for you. You could be focusing on the one that you're already kind of doing, or you're not that effective at, but you're trying to just push against the tide, really. So you're right in how in asking about how you diagnose it. I'm going to do a couple of exercises tonight. If you struggle doing those, then you're going to struggle tapping into these forces. I'm going to explain variations of it as well. So how do you tap into your most optimal pattern anatomically for you? Okay. So problems, we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Got a great video with my dad. Dad's got replacement knee, bad knees, arthritis, really struggles, can't put any torsion through his knee whatsoever, and so we adapted it. So if you're someone who suffers with your knees, we may just touch on that as well. So I'm going to get all this done in the next 45 minutes. Thinking about the swinging components, Verd, we're not thinking about the golf swing. Okay, so we're thinking about components. Okay, we're thinking about joint actions. So can you extend and externally rotate your left hip? Okay, if you can't do that, something else is going to do it. So it's not components of a golf swing. We've got to forget golf swing technique. Okay, the same way that you don't think about football technique if you're kicking or throwing or hitting a ball. Okay, but if your elbow hurt, you'd make some compensation and you'd work out how you could compensate, because that's out of action. Well, we are unintentionally taking parts of our body or joint actions out of action. We're making them redundant purely by how we conceptualize how we swing. And that becomes our standard operating system that we develop awareness for, and then we struggle to move away from it because the body only recognizes these components which are making this action. So it only recognizes those component forms in the way they're being used, and it develops that as a habit, and it recognizes them. So you have a schema that the body's operating with, and it only has that to recognize in the form of your golf swing. And then you think about technique more, and then you add more components. But the problem is the capability in the system's not there. We're talking about movement capability, awareness through movement. We're not talking golf swing technique. Golf swing technique is something that's the tip of the iceberg. Everything else under it is what's really at play, because the tip of the iceberg wouldn't be there if the rest of it wasn't there. So what is forming this iceberg? What's under the surface? That's what you see. These exercises that you see are the tip of the iceberg. Underneath it, it's a very different rationale and experience. So that's what we need to look at. Does your body prefer to rotate left, rotate right? With its torso, with the pelvis, with the hips? We have to find out about the body before we know how to use it. Okay, so that's the component form. It's like, can you actually use your big toes? Can we actually push off the big toe? Is the big toe limited? Because that's a push off, okay? And the golf swing requires a push off. So can we push off? Or can we push off through the legs? Can we push off through the feet, the ankles, the knees, the hips, or do we just have to push off through using the lower back? So it's kind of, these things are important, not where the club is, where should your shoulders be, your rib cage, your pelvis. I'm not saying that's not of some benefit, but it's probably not the starting point, and I certainly don't kind of suggest you go into that place. Okay. Let's crack on. We're going to go. So T-peg height, we'll talk about that in a bit. Tempo, absolutely. If the tempo's not right, the body's not got time to move. Maybe, so you miss phases of the action. If something else moves too early, something else can't move. So the biggest, I would say, contributor to tempo is how you recognise the levers, how you recognise the club, and how you're moving that club. Are you doing this, or are you doing this? If you do that, then this has to brace. It stops. It has to stop to let this go. So suddenly now, whatever you're trying to do with your body is probably not going to have much effect. You're probably just going to, you could potentially create injury by trying to work against these forces that you've created with the golf club. And if now you've got to try and do something else to manage this. So that's the biggest thing I see, this jackknife instead of this. So instead of this happening, we get that, and we get it early, or even a bit late, too late. Sorry, or even later, but way too early. We're never seeing this, and that's not done with the hands, by the way. It's done with what's happening at this end, not here. Certainly not that end. And everyone's thinking about where the club is, but that ain't how a lorry jackknifes. So an articulated lorry is basically driven by the carry, by the engine. And so whatever that load is that it's pulling is following. So you're pulling this load. That's what you're doing. But you're doing it through moving side to side, rotating up and down. And you're pulling that, okay, because it's in 3 dimensions. So it's not just horizontal. And it looks, you see, it can look very simple, but it's doing this. It's doing this, it's doing this. It's all over, okay? That's why it's so intricate, and you can't break it down into technical component form. But is this happening? Or is that happening? And then, oh, this is stuck. So now I've got to start to shift, because suddenly now this has gone, it's out there. We know we need to strike a golf ball like this to get compression, to get that sweet spot down, to get that friction on the ball. If we do this, suddenly now, great for hitting it over a bunker maybe, or a bunker shot, something like that, but now it's shallow, adding loft, we can't really get that friction on the ball, and we're coming in too shallow, and now we've got to start shifting, and now we've got to start using the body, we've got to start going down, when probably we should be going up to release. We're having to go down to get the strike, because this is releasing up, so we have to go down, and we have to shift forward, so we end up swaying and shifting and doing lots of other things and moving down. And then maybe we hit the ball fat and we think, oh, I've got to shift more or keep my head down or whatever it is, but it's what's going on here that's important. So guys, can these exercises transition into other sports, Danny? Yes. So we've got people, we've got stroke rehabilitation therapists using the GRF. We've got physiotherapists, because it's not really just for golf, it's for human movement. Guys in baseball, yeah, it's what underpins is the gait cycle, and the gait cycle is linked to every movement you make. in your life, which then forms task specifically into the movement you recognise as that particular movement for the sport. So a golf swing or a kick, but it's the movement vocabulary that it starts to expose, and it's the movement vocabulary that it develops, and it's the literacy then that develops from there on in, and the recognition. It's an awareness then of how you recognize this movement form and how it could be of use when you pick a golf club up and swing. So when you do start to use the exercises that transition from the GRF, that's when you use the GRF the way it's designed to be used. It's not just a golf, it's not a swing guide or a tic tac or a impact bag. It's nothing like that. It's actually destabilizing you, so you actually feel challenged and have to start to reorganize. So it's a self-organization tool. Brilliant. Right, we need to get cracking, guys. Yes, the hardest part is when the components function differently. The variability, we have to attune ourselves to the variability. There's thresholds in what we do, and we have to recognize those, and that's how we regulate what we do. It's how you walk. Okay, you're walking from day to day, doesn't change that much. It does over a period of time, potentially, as we change, but from day to day, you don't recognize it. Okay, it's like your weight. You don't recognise it from day to day, but in maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years, suddenly someone goes, oh, you put some weight on, and you're like, oh, and you look in the mirror and oh my God. Or you've got on the weighing scales and you think, oh God. You don't realise it from day to day, okay? And that's when habits creep in that you don't recognise in your golf swing. They go unnoticed for a bit. How many lessons do students typically need in order for the fundamentals to click? Some people, it's just, that's why we do half a day, 3 hours. Generally for a regular golfer, experienced golfer, to be honest, I'll let the guys on the chat comment, and people, we've got testimonials, and people, really that's better for the forums than me. Because everybody, I had an amazing email from a guy from Golf Groove, I won't say his name, and he talked about how it clicked 3-4 weeks later, and it's actually changed how he views other aspects of his life, and how he's become a lot more reflective and evaluates and enables himself to adapt how he applies himself. So he got the most out of that session. He loved the day, and we saw some big gains. Golf Groove, we're going to be going there again, guys, in Wimbledon. Great 3 days, 3 one-day schools again, and he initially got home and he was like, his wife asked him, did you have a great day? And he says, yeah, I enjoyed it, it was good. He loved the day, we had real fun, and he was hitting it 20-30 yards further. It's not always the case, but he was hitting it further, he was drawing it, he used to fade it a bit, and then he could control the fade as well. So he was getting what he wanted, but still he felt there was something missing. Well, he was trying to still apply what he was learning using his pre-existing mindset of trying to essentially adopt what we were doing, but apply it through his previous concept. So trying to make it fit what he used to do. And there's just conflict. Yeah, it requires a reinvention of the mindset too, not just a reinvention of your movement. So he then went and I don't think he didn't play great for the first few days, and then started to reflect on it, went back to the exercises, thought about what we discussed, and then he found that he was experiencing something different, and he allowed himself to explore that more, and he started to attune himself to these movements, and the dots started to join like 2 weeks later. 3 weeks later, he's playing on the course, and now he says my movement is so recognizable, I can sense where I'm in space, and it's just the start of the journey. It's a platform to build on. Now he's developing a level of awareness which allows him to become much more externally focused, but much more internally aware of how he's creating the movement, what he's creating, and how that connects to what he's actually intending to do. So it allowed his mind to go out there, and his mind's always been in here, thinking about what he's doing. So by recognizing his movement, exploring that, it allowed him to become more external. So recognizing the motion through body awareness allows the mindset to change, and you can start to express yourself more freely because you feel more comfortable and familiar with your movement and more adaptive with it. So that was amazing. And then he said he's playing the best golf ever now, and he's got a new free thinking mind in terms of golf. But he said he's applying that in other areas of his life as well, which that is powerful to me. That means just as much, if not more, than the actual golf lesson. So it was amazing, guys. We need to get on with some golf stuff. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so Kevin, it took him one lesson. Kevin, yeah, was awesome. Guy, how are we doing, Guy? I've got your video still. I've got some videos to send out to them. It's been so busy, and I've not been well actually for a few days. So I've edited it up. I've got a full 28-minute, I think, video it is of the exercises we did at Golf Group, and then there's a few little ones as well. So they'll be coming soon. Because we do provide a video of your experience in a lesson, so you get the full 3 hours. Most people can vouch for this. They often go over 3 hours. 3 hours is the minimum. Sometimes 4. It's kind of not because someone's struggling. It's just that we've got a lot to do to make sure we affect that change. And so you get that unedited raw version on a private download for you, private link. So you have that for life. You can relive it, and I suggest you do. It's like watching your favourite movie over and over and over again. You pick up so much more stuff, and it starts to take on different meanings. And the fundamentals that you learn are the toolkit for you to go and develop, and they'll always stand the test of time. So whether you're aspiring to be a single figure golfer, and you're off 18, 20, when you get single figures, it will still hold true, and it will still give you the platform to keep going. But of course, you need change, but what will underpin everything will still stand the test of time philosophically, and the movements are still going to be there. So you really can't go wrong when you do the exercises, no matter what level you're at. Whether I'm working with a tour player or whether I'm working with a 28 handicapper, just working with movement and the mind. Okay, vertical and torque. So the big one for vertical is your propulsion chain. So can you spring load your leg, and can you fire it? Can you engage, you load it, and can you push and unload through that chain quickly? So it's force velocity. There's some components that you need. So Verd, this will be good for you. Think of it in more anatomical components, not golf swing, Ledbetter 1990. Okay, components, not P's. There ain't no P's. Okay. Yes, as a biomechanist, I'll use swing events, but I ain't coaching with swing events. Okay. But there are values for these swing events sometimes which are helpful, but it's not to be used for me in actually coaching. No one ever sees them, apart from some pressure plate data, which is really a feedback tool, and I use it as just an interface for attuning you to forces, not using it to try and achieve some numbers or stuff like that. But I can go into numbers if you want to, but there's really, it just detracts. It's just another form of all the golf literature that was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's just changed its face in the form of data now and science, but it's still trying to tell you how to move in a certain way. It's just reskinned. How long to assimilate depends on how many ingrained habits. David, thank you, David. Great to see you on the chat. Great to hear from you. 2 years after his movement, you see. So this thing's for life, guys. We're not here. It's not a quick fix. Everybody searches YouTube wanting a quick fix, and this isn't the channel. But what you do see is you see these epiphany kind of moments. You see these aha kind of where the dots join. But this means something different for each and every one. Every individual's experience is something different and has different needs. And in terms of achievement, they recognise different things. There's some people I've had in here who flushed it, but it was more important for them that they felt more freedom through a certain part of their body, or they felt more freedom in the swing. They were like, this just feels great. So it was the feeling for them. And we were looking at the shot and thinking, this is amazing. And it's like, actually, you just wanted to feel more freedom and take the stress off. And so it's kind of, and we discussed it all, but sometimes you're like, wow, look at what's happening now. What's really, as a result of what we're doing, look, there's other things happening. So that's what you might pick up on then. But actually that person was wanting something different. So we're all the same. We're all wanting something we all associate with it different. There are similarities, but the session draws so many different things out of the system. Things emerge that you didn't realise you really kind of wanted or needed before. So yeah, it takes on a different shape. I don't know where the golf lesson's going, ever. I haven't got a clue. Well, I've got a kind of a framework, but only for exploring. And then after that, I go wherever we need to go. So I don't really have any plan, only apart from what I'm going to do in the first 10 minutes, just to find a little bit about you, and then let's see where that goes. So it's all off script. And it needs to be that way. So I've got to be as adaptable as I'm expecting you to be with your golf game. Will there be any drills for people who have purchased the GRF? Yes, there will. I can't say too much, guys. I can't give it a big reveal. There's going to be something going off in the next few days, and that's going to open up what you were talking about. Online lessons, guys. You may have seen me. I am going to be releasing that as well. That's going to be part of what we do. You might even be guessing what's taking place in the next few days. But online lessons, you may have seen me on Skillist. I've only put a 24-hour story out on Insta because I time-wise, it's a little bit limited. So I just put it out there, tested the water, got quite a big response straight away, which was fantastic. So I am on Skillist. If you want an online lesson, that function is there with me in person, and you get a video lesson live, and then you get a follow-up video from me talking you through what we've done and moving forward and just supporting you with that. Have you considered bringing the GR system of training to America? Kramer, yeah. I've been in talks to come out to America, and it may be California this year. If you're interested, guys, let me know just on the comments. But we're looking at coming out to California, potentially November, maybe December, but probably November. Just in some talks at the moment, trying to organise it really. But that'll be my first venture out into America with golf in terms of coaching. I've only ever been once to Florida, loved it, did the tourist thing. But I want to see more and come out and really experience it, and come out and, more importantly, help you guys. That's the thing, that's the reason. But I come and experience more of America. Let's get on with this, guys. Okay, I like it. Right, how to track progress of the mechanics, some other specifically for wrist movement. We'll talk about that. Let's go vertical, guys, because if we ain't flexing and extending in some way, shape or form, we're not really rotating. So we're going to look at rotation and flexion and extension, and the shift bit, okay, which is important. We'll see if that happens. So I'm using a yoga wedge. Okay, you don't need that now, but what we're going to do is, in fact, we'll do it without the yoga wedge to start with, but I use a yoga wedge and put it in the foot to provide, just to move the foot into a slightly different position, it activates different chains. But I'm going to just, I'd suggest you do this with me, probably without your shoes on, if possible, and take a split stance. So I'm going to go lead leg forward, trail leg back, split stance, quite narrow, nice and comfortable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bend my lead knee forward, push off the back foot, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my lead knee now, the knee that's bending forward, I'm going to let it track towards the big toe, and then I'm going to let it fall in. And notice what that does, it wants to rotate the pelvis. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let my hip, I'm going to let that slide out. Be careful not to twist the knee. You are going to get some torque through the knee. So gentle. It's not a case of being a bull in a china shop. More is better. This is great. I want to do it as much as possible. Gentle. There, and just let the knee collapse and let your hip slide out. So you're loading this chain, which is a pronatory chain, which is what we do to load into the floor, because this is a natural collapse. And what we do from here is we push off the toe and it springs us back out. Now that happens fast. We need velocity to the force we're producing and trying to transfer. We need it's force velocity, the golf swing. Most of us don't have the components that move quick enough. We've got the components, but we don't recognise how fast they need to move. So, for example, we need pelvic tilt. So we need anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. So with your knees straight, you can just test for this. Belt buckle down to the ground, that'll arch your lower back. Belt buckle and belly button separate. So if you think of the pelvis as a bucket of water, we're just tipping water out the front. And then draw the belt buckle up towards your belly button. Imagine you're tipping water out the back, and that's posterior tilt. You can even squeeze your glutes. And now you're tilted. You're not going to get as much posterior as you get anterior. Generally, it's kind of, unless you've got a super kind of a lot of flexion through your lumbar, but we're going to extend. Most people have a lot of extension, and then bring that posterior up. And we need that because when we anteriorly tilt, so now the lower back arches a bit, you might feel a bit of tension, bend your knees, that loads you into the floor. And then when you push off the toes, that's going to pop the belt buckle up. And then you move through that range, posterior tilting, back up through to about neutral. But you need that range. It's the speed here that's really important. I'm not trying to do a Beyonce, okay, for obvious reasons, but that movement is important for loading and unloading. You don't need to be making huge movements to get a lot of force. You'll have seen on the channel, you don't need, that is easily enough vertical force for a golf swing. When you combine it with the rotation, because it's a vertical that's transferring it and accelerating it. So that's firing the sequence. That's your afterburner. So you've got to be able to transfer this energy through these joints. And if the joints can't move, you don't recognise them, they become blocked. And then what happens is now it slows the transfer down. And something else has to move out of time now to try and make up for it and catch up or take over. And then we lose a sequence because we're missing these components. And that's what I was talking about earlier, Bird. N2 Golf, I'm down for the California trip. Brilliant. So, can you do that? Can you go into flexion and triple extension? And when you jump, point your toes down to the floor. Okay, you don't have to come off the floor a lot now because that transfers through the ankles. Look at the shoulders, how they react. Energy through the system, not having to force this. reacts. So once we've got that feeling, we can then go into the flexion and just keep your chest forward and just let your hips slide out. That's going to stretch it out even more, keeping the chest forward. And then just push back off. Okay, so I use, if you've got a GRF, that's the best exercise there for feeling it through the foot for pronation, because we need to load the foot correctly. But just to load the hip, it's the same thing. So if I wanted to jump and unload off the floor as efficiently as possible, any kind of movement like this is going to affect my ability to get off the floor. I need to be able to recognise how I can load the hips, because this is where all the big musculature is for the power. This is driving the golf swing through the feet. So you can internally rotate, keep the chest forward, and then spring off that leg. Because you're going to be rotating and loading. Not this. So if I was out there, I can't twist. The whole movement's gone. But here, now I can use my hip. Notice the pelvis isn't twisting with it. The pelvis isn't hip rotation. The pelvis, the hips rotating, pelvis forward. Now I can spring. Do that with the other leg. Load it, unload. So going back to the exercise, guys. Split the stance, go trail leg. Let the knee collapse. And just push off the toe. Feel it through the hip flexor here. And what you've got now is you've got the ability to push off both sides. And look, there's a shift already just by pushing, because that push naturally takes you across, it shifts your mass. But the pressure's moving the mass, not mass moving pressure. So a lot of people are using mass, and the pressure just reacts. It's passive instead of using pressure to move mass. Then we can jump, then we can use the ground. So early extension, no such thing. We need extension, okay? And the early extension that you're probably thinking, it's probably more of a pelvic shift, which extends, and the extension's too slow. I've never really seen people who just extend really quick at the top. It's a gradual extension because they haven't got the force velocity. If you have the force velocity, the body recognises it and goes, we don't need to release, we don't need to extend so early because it's going to take so long, we need to go earlier. If you can spring, your body's going to let you load for longer because it knows it's got an exit route. It knows it's got the exit strategy. It's got the mechanism and the speed to use it. So it can let you load, it can let you shift. But if your body knows, the nervous system already recognises this and it's not going to let you go there. So we've got to make the body know it's available so it can recognise these components, and then we can start to utilise them. That's why these are so more powerful than just doing a swing exercise, because this is signalling to your body, to your brain, it recognises subconsciously what it can and can't do. Much more than you consciously can. Because you're not aware of your movement ranges. We've got no idea. We just know something might feel one day a bit restricted. We've become so desensitized to our body and oversensitized to other parts because they're often being used and in our field of view. So if I was to, for example, if I hit my little finger, I'm going to go, oh, if I couldn't move it, I'm going to go and have it treated. I'm going to go to the physio probably. I'm going to go see James tomorrow and go, James, I can't move my finger. My little toe, most people's little toes have become redundant because of footwear and function, and they just can't move the little toe. That is just as important as your little finger. But because we don't use it as often and we can compensate, until it became a real issue and it was really painful or it affected how we move and walk, then we'd go and have it seen to much, much later. But we don't recognise we're losing the function until we start getting some symptom. And that's the same as the golf swing. We become so desensitized to certain parts of the body, things start to happen, and then we don't address it. And then we start to address it, overly technical, and someone's like telling me now how I should move my finger, but I can't physically move it. because the function's not there. But James, well, he wouldn't do that as my physio, but he'd go, well, you just need to bend it. Yeah, but I can't bend it. Well, you just need to bend it. So that's like a coach telling me to do something, but physically I can't do it. But we're doing that to ourselves each and every day by becoming desensitized to our system. Our feet, for example, we don't really connect with our feet. They're in socks, they're in cushioned shoes, on rubber soles. We're not connected to the ground. The foot's it's like having your hands in oven gloves all day and expecting to use them for intricate tasks. The sensitivity is not there, and then suddenly you start to lose the function of bits, and you don't really feel it, but you can still pick things up and eat. It doesn't affect your daily function too much, and you normalise to that. But it's very substandard. It's not really the best way of living, but that's what you do, and that's golf. Most people accept their level of golf because they're not really recognising what they're capable of. What happens is every now and again there's a breakout. The body does something amazing. It taps into something, and you get a swing, and you go, "Wow, did they do that?" And that organisation was in the moment. It was something special, something brilliant. But you try and consciously make some kind of sense of it and reference, and now you try and repeat it consciously. But you can't because you don't really recognise the system that produced it in the first place. Grant, the best shoes. I've not seen any good golf shoes, mate. No good golf shoes yet. So I got in touch with Vivo a long time ago, but they weren't interested. I've designed some golf shoes, which are like nothing you'll have seen or are out there. Even the barefoot shoes are great, but yeah, I've not seen anything that's really functional for what the body needs to do and how we can challenge it. So I've got some cool ideas, some cool designs, but golf shoes, I'm afraid, you need to find one that you can twist, which provides support, but the malleability for the foot to function, and the support, because you're going to be moving laterally. So you're going to be sliding, there's going to be shear, so it needs to be fairly tight, but it needs to be able to move. So the sole's got to be really, so I'd say tight upper. The sole has got to be, so I say tight, but it's got to let you move. So it's tight, but it's kind of soft, but you can tighten it up. Like ballet shoes, for example. And so don't go buying ballet shoes for golf. And the sole needs to be bended, so obviously needs to be bendy but supportive. That's the difficulty in a golf shoe. You either go too much one way or not enough the other way. Most shoes are far too rigid, desensitizing us. Some are not even, we've not even got contact. There was a guy coming the other day with some shoes, I won't say which brand, and the longitudinal arch, which is the arch that goes through the middle of the foot, was not even in contact with the ground. So basically on the pressure plate, it was just the outside of his feet. So he had no contact through the second, third, and only a bit of the fourth met head. He'd never really sensitized that. It was off the ground, essentially. Ridiculous. Because you need this recruitment for movement for the rest of the body. Every part of the body needs every other part generally. Okay, guys, right. I'm just talking about stuff, but I want to get more specific. So what we talked about there was flexion, extension, but really rotation, because to flex, I'm internally rotating here. Only if the pelvis moves forward is that internal rotation. If the pelvis moves away from the femur, I'm externally rotating. I'm internally rotating at the ankle, but I'm externally rotating at the pelvis. This is your backswing. This is the propulsion. Okay, so if we don't, as a start, if we don't recognise that, we're at a disadvantage. Loading, unloading, loading, unloading. It's going to facilitate rotation, lift. Centre of mass has to lift. Centre of mass shifts and goes up. How do we move centre of mass? We use pressure. We use pressure, we push, we move, and that creates the chain. So these chains are so important, guys. So vertical, you can start to explore this a bit more by letting your body rotate with it then, and then push out. And you can go into a bit more lateral bend, lateral flexion. Low point, but don't pull the shoulder back. Early release, low point back, struggling now with path, probably going left through impact. Fight, having to hold the face off with after an early release. Most of us are doing that and running out of space. Explore this, because now I can just pop the hip through the foot and this just moves. It reacts under a natural tensioning. Remember, guys, this is why think about your golf swing in a technical way plays havoc with how your body tensions itself structurally. So if I take this and if I pull this, so someone says to me, oh, because you've got to start doing this with your arm, I do that. This has to apply an equal and opposite force to maintain the structural integrity, otherwise it goes with it. So when I move my right shoulder, my left hip doesn't go with it. It tensions just as much here through the chain, through to the foot, as I'm tensioning it, as moving it away with my posterior chain. So the anterior chain's getting stretched, and it's having to tension to keep me in this space. So when you start thinking about your golf swing, you're actually adapting everything else. You're constraining it potentially, and now you may be affecting how it can potentially move and react. But when you're subconsciously organising, the body knows all this, and it's way ahead of the process, way ahead of that. It's way ahead of the game. As a general rule, do you start with closed club face to make the release? Okay, closed club faces. Wow. It's relative, guys. Club face is relative to is relative to essentially how you're holding the club. Okay, and the function of how you're using it with the wrist. Your grip and the club, like any other sport, they organise themselves around the intention of the movement. We don't start with a grip. Okay, if you want to throw a ball, you don't start with holding and gripping the ball. You know what you're going to be doing. You're picking it up. That's going to enable you to make the movement to throw the ball. So the way that you adapt the setup is directly linked to the intention and the recognition of the function of the movement, and then the grip as a function of that organises itself. So you could put 99% of us have got the wrong grips because we've learned to grip a club and then stand to the golf ball. The grip might give us movement in different directions, but it might not be our directions that we need. So it's like the grip might not be right. You'll often, very rarely will you see me change grips, as in consciously, with the pupil. The grip will just start to change itself, and sometimes people go, oh, my grip's changing. Oh, I find myself under here or over there, or I'm doing this, and it's like, or if we explore the ranges of motion and what they need to create the change that they want, then they go, well, I've got to change my grip because my shoulders doesn't do this or my shoulders doesn't do that. They start to recognise more about the body. You're becoming much more self-aware. That's what these exercises are for, guys. So I'm getting a lot of technical questions, which is fine. But it's good because this will all link back, trust me. So, golf swing. Let's go lead arm. Lead arm. We're going to focus hip. So if you've got a GRF or you've got a rotating disc, you can use that just for focusing on hip. And you take your lead arm, be careful with your expensive chandeliers. I've not got chandeliers, we used to do sort of light bulbs in a socket, but here we're going to rotate. Notice where you need to go to swing the club up. Probably, if I do this, can't use this. It's redundant. If I go, so the foot starts straight, we're going to bend forward, twist it in. This will load your hip. So if you struggle feeling what a hip load's like, this loads the glutes, this loads the hip complex. Lead side. Now to swing the club up, notice where you go. You go up. That thinking. Probably not round here. It's not going to let you use the leg particularly well. So you'll find the natural orientation of your arm, the trajectory of your arm and the club through the function of using the ground. Now from here, you can spring off the ball of your foot, the toe, to spring back, and he wants to throw the club back. And look where we go up, and the club goes down. So that's just, and then if you step off and do the same exercise, you'll start to really feel that lateral line, that chain, how the body rotates and spirals from the ground up. When am I going to get people training my method? I can't do it really. It takes way too long, and I've got GRF ambassador coaches who are linked through GRF system who are very competent at using the board and the system, but my coaches, for example, George, you've seen on the channel, it's 18 months to 2 years before they even start coaching. They need to film, they spend time filming me, they spend every day with me, and we do continual coach development, because it's changing, it's evolving all the time, I'm developing it all the time, and I've got to assure the quality of the practice. So I've got to make sure that you get, wherever you are, you get the experience that you're expecting and that I would want you to have. And I've tried it, it's so difficult, and as much as I want to, I really do. That's why I've got a very close-knit team of X-Men who know it inside out with me, and I have to develop them because there's so many layers, there's so much depth. I have to continually help educate them in this and train, and they also help. They contribute to helping me with my thinking. But there's so much more to this than meets the eye. But there's also much more to come as well. The research I've done, it's 25 years. There's so much to come. It's it's exciting. So thank you for the question. It was Mick, I think. Mick 19421. Not your birthday, I guess. So I guess you're not 3. Yeah, it's just a very difficult one. So guys, that's the lead side. But that's not to say we swing the golf club like this guy, by the way, because the thing about golf instruction and the way that golf instruction has been received and the way we've been educated, conditioned to receive golf instruction is so literal. We look at it, we go, just do this, just do this. It's like, whoa, I'm not telling you to now do this. Okay, because where we go when you've got a GRF, you're not going to do that. But you are going to experience forms of that in some space and at some time. So you start to feel by using the other exercises how you can use the movements that you've developed through the other exercises. So one exercise leads to another, to another, to another, and the accumulation of all that, the accumulation of the knowledge that you're gaining about how you move, the experience of it, that's what takes you to that place. So here, rocking the board. If you haven't got a board, feet together, and we're going to do a wrecking ball. Pistol grips, shoulder width apart, arms straight, feet together, and just do one at a time. So you have to step first, then rock it. And as you're rocking up, you take a step the other way and rock it. Okay. I'd then change direction, go that way first. The arm stays straight. Because we've got to move this thing. If I do that, look at this. It doesn't really move. As soon as I go that way and then move this way, right, it swings. So if you're trying to twist this club and you're not going that way, you're not priming the system right. So you're not getting that reaction. And then we struggle finding the natural movement because it's no longer a reaction, it's an action we're having to somehow manipulate. So, wrecking ball. So notice the rocking. Then, without taking the steps, you've got the whole thing. On the board, use a medicine ball. So we've got this reacting. You've got this loading. Obviously there's more to it. I'm just giving you a little bit of basics. There's more elements to this. But what we've got now is we've got a loading. So we can actually practice taking, with our feet together, we can take a step back and extend up and throw the club up. And we're flexing and extending. Then we can do it the other way. Swing back. As you swing back, take the step forward and drop. If you're being super clever with it, twist the foot in. And then push off the toe. What you've just done is this. So you're loading the hip and then you're using the foot to fire that chain and use what you've loaded. Then you're going to find your true finish. Where does all this momentum that you're transferring and accumulating take you? Your golf swing is going to need this finish now for all this to happen, so that goes into tempo. Recognising the timing and where you are in space in that time to allow all the movements to happen. But it's more intuitive. Intuition is experience and knowledge, so it's experiential. You're learning this all the time. Doing is learning. Awareness through movement. You are not trying to premeditate the movement in some form of, with some form of concept and just becomes mechanical. It's all deliberate. The tensioning's wrong. You're just loading that band I was showing you with tension and trying to move it. Hi guys, Canada, America, Holland. I've got one, someone just asked, Sebastian, is there still a spot for the event in the Netherlands? If you email me, I'm still on my Zen, I've still got a Zen email that you can use, marcus.bell@zen.golf. I've also got a new one coming, marcus@grfgolf.com. Use the marcus.bell@zen.golf for the minute. If you're interested, drop me your details. I can make one space available. It's fully booked for the 4 places each day. It gave me the license to have one more space if I needed it. So we've got 5 on the first day and we've got 4 on the second. So I've got one more. I can stretch out to one more on the Wednesday. So it's next Wednesday. And get in touch, I can give you the details. So, therefore, you've got the drop and pop now. Let's create some more friction. Let's get some torque, because a lot of this is just moving from side to side. You might be doing it and just moving from side to side. It's just letting your body swing and not really rotating and not exploring your rotation of your rib cage. That's somewhere to go. How do we get this energy through to the club? We're using joints. Are we using those joints to the maximum of their capability? Can you think of the best exercise that would help most golfers get a decent Zen swing, can't get on with GRF? It's the same thing. There's no difference between Zen and GRF. It's the same thing. It's just, I just changed the name because it's the GRF system. There's so essentially did a lesson today about where you're with action, vision. So the lesson was very much driven by vision, but where are you looking? So can you look to the right and swing the club where you're looking? And then look forward and swing the club there, and then look left and swing the club there. But now, can you swing the club whilst looking left to the place where you were looking right, whilst looking left? And then can you now shift your attention to that place where you're swinging, and now can you look back in the middle to where the target might be, but keep the club swinging to the right? How does that feel? Do you recognise it, or do you look where you're swinging? So you can start to be aware of where you want to swing it, look out there and swing, and then very quickly shift your attention to where you want the ball to finish, maybe the target, but you're still aware of, in your mind's eye, of what's over there and where this club's going. So it's here, the two are not mutually inclusive. You don't need them to be working together. You don't need to be looking, swinging that way, looking and swinging that way, because you will naturally start to follow where you're looking. And that might be skewed as well. That's often, I do vision testing in the lessons very often. So I look at visual acuity as well as movement acuity. The two are very much interlinked through and adapt, affect how you move posturally and how you interact with things. So looking is very much part of it first. So these exercises I've just done with you are critical. You'll find your posture, because to do this, then you'll stand in the right place, which is going to let you do these exercises. So there's a place you need to stand to perform this. That's pretty much where you'll need to be when you golf swing. The answers are already there in the exercises. The answers are in how you're moving to do the exercises. You're already adapting without realising it. That's the whole purpose of the exercises. You don't realise it. You're creating your golf swing without even thinking about your golf swing. But if you're trying to think about your golf swing whilst you're doing them, then you're trying to perform these in some form of a golf swing, and that's what breaks down. So there are no simple exercises. It's just having your attention in the right place and letting things emerge and not trying to premeditate too much. No, there's not caveats of very lateral forces. This is when you step, these are big lateral forces. So some of us are more lateral, more rotational, more vertical. We're all a combination of them, and we've got with this. These are just exercises to find out where your strength is. Guys, there's thousands and thousands of exercises. I'm showing you 2 or 3, and there's so many. There's so many variations of these exercises. There is no one exercise, and this is why YouTube is so dangerous as well, because what is the exercise for this, Marcus? What's the exercise for that? Guys, it's a journey, and you need to go through that journey and experience all these different exercises as one. You don't just go to the gym and work on your bicep, and if you did, that would affect how you perform with the rest of the body. But also, you don't just go and work on your bicep in the gym for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, and go, right, now I'm going to do this one. You train the whole system, and the whole system adapts holistically to whatever you need to do, and the function improves as a whole. So this is why the exercises, it's an integrated program. It's not isolated exercises. Otherwise, you're just going back to the same old thing of what does my wrist do, what does my elbow do? But for your wrist to do this, the rest of the body has to do something. So guys, that's why that's why I told you earlier, if you just dropped in, one of the testimonials I got from Golf Group was he's completely reevaluated how he thinks about golf, and it's allowed him to access more of his true potential. And he's changing his game massively, and it's took him 3 weeks to realise that, and now he's playing the best golf ever, and his mind's out there now, he's recognising what's here, sensory-wise, in a somatic way, but that allows his mind to be out there, driving it. So, guys, spiraling. This is training this is training that rotation and then unload. This force velocity, we've got to get out of the ground quick. to get into the ground quick. We've got to be able to get out of the ground quick to be able to shift. So to use the lateral that you were talking about, we've got to be able to get out the ground quick to be able to let myself go into the ground. Otherwise, the body is going to start just trying to get out. It knows it's got to extend to try and get some force, and it's going to start doing it early and slow. So it's often a thrust, because that's a cheap mechanism to get some extension. It's really slow. It's not this. So we need extension. We just need it at the right time. So how do we start to explore rotation? Well, we start with keeping the club head still and start moving the handle back and forth. So we're rotating the club this way, not that way. That's wild, and yes, that's free for feeling movement, and yeah, okay, feeling of freedom. But it's this that's truly rotating, the torquing the club about its centre of mass this way, which enables us to sense what it's like to bring the leading edge and the loft into play and move into space that's so different, because we never really get to that space that we need to be in. So we need to explore it first, because for that to happen, look what happens with the body. Then you can start to rotate your hips and feel what it's like to use this chain. That's why I use this flail to trail drill that I created here. You'll see variations, I'm sure, elsewhere, but this snake-like, this fishtail, doesn't mean this can be so misinterpreted, guys, so you've got to be careful, because then it's like, oh, Marcus says you've got to do this. Marcus says you've got to take the handle back like this now, and really, it's like, no. These are just to tap into the body rotation. This will happen at some point in your golf swing. This is going to happen. That's going to happen at some point in your golf swing. Okay, probably, unless you're taking it back like this. You don't need your hands to travel a long distance to swing a golf club. That's not an efficient way of using it. And you can let the club travel a lot further by using your joints, a bit easier. And then, how do I move this? You drop and pop. You push off, but you push off to rotate. So we've got to explore that rotation. It's back to the walking. Someone asked me earlier about the Sean Clements or something. Yeah, I'm aware of him. And look, I don't know about Sean's rationale and what he does. This is, I was the sports biomechanics and delving into skill acquisition, all my work at university and all my research. That's what's brought me to this point. So it's all driven by human movement and exploring outside of golf in many different movement therapies, and it's all going to get explained soon. And if you know more about me and what I do, then you probably, if you don't go back through some of the podcasts I've done with Carl Morris, the stuff I've done with Brendan, Be Better Golf back in 2021 for you guys in America, stuff where I've explained a little bit about what I do. It's very much linked. It's all linked to the gait cycle. It's linked to neuroscience. It's linked to skill acquisition, or skill adaptation, should I say, as well. That's very relevant. It's linked to posturology, neurology. It's linked to physiotherapy, osteopathy. It's linked to so many different movement therapies. It's linked to it's 25 years, so it's kind of, there's no one person that's influenced me, or it's kind of, I've spent more time outside of golf than I have inside golf to get to this point. So it's kind of, yeah, just there's no definitive answer. So yeah, can't really answer it really. It is what you see. All you can do is take what you see on the channel, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help as many of you guys and girls out there, as many people as possible. And bring people together like this. Chatting on here is amazing. Everybody's coming together, interacting. We're learning from each other, and that's what it's all about. And together we help each other. And hopefully this medium of the channel is a catalyst for something. Brendan at Be Better Golf. Thanks, Brandon. Thank you. What did Brandon say? Is it The Zen group is the best golf family, thanks. So here, now we can start to take this rotation and start to increase it. So now you're starting to feel a sequence, a chain. And I want to start to infuse this with a bit more oomph. So the place to go, on a GRF if you've got one, if not, piece of wood on a bit of dowel, or I want you to twist the board. I want you to load left and twist and go round. Notice how you have to move this to go that way. Notice how you have to move. And then in your golf swing, what does it feel like? Now you've got the friction of the ground, you're working with the drop and pop. And in the drop, you're going to start to feel some torque in both directions. Load right if you want to go right, and load. So there's what you're creating. My feet aren't sliding, I'm using that friction. What I'm creating now is a torque in that flexion to extend and transfer. So you're giving your body a sense of what it can do, how it can move, and to just tap into these forces so we can start to sense how we use these forces, because how we sense these forces is different to how we actually use them in the golf swing. A rotational force with the ground is linear, as you'll have seen on my pressure plate. A rotational force that we're creating through the body here is transverse plane movement, it's rotation, which creates angular momentum. It's different, but the way that we initiate it from the ground through these forces is something we need to recognise. These exercises are attuning you to this. Then as you go through the exercises, through the programme, you start to feel more of an evolution of your movement. So exploring your rotation then, letting your ribcage rotate. So I would then, someone mentioned about a stack and tilt and stuff like that. There is no, it's just made up, isn't it? We're not just going this way, yes. But I'm not here doing this. I'm here, okay? That's something that I will internally rotate into. I'm not staying there and rotating because it's not the same movement, okay? Just looks like this here. But when I rotate, this might look like that here, but my foot's not going to be here. So we're moving in a way here to afford ourselves more movement and to explore it. So rotationally, we're letting things happen, and we're allowing ourselves to transfer it through the ground. These exercises, guys, are super important. The wrist, someone talked about the wrist, so we can start to go to the infinity drill, making a figure 8 with the club. Now you can start to explore. By the way, when you do this, you're probably thinking of the club head. I want you to think of the handle as well, the butt end, to now use the handle. And which direction do you go? Where would your club be travelling through the hitting area? Would it be travelling anti-clockwise or clockwise? Some people go that way. It's like folding your arms. Or is it that? Or is it that? Okay, it's like, can we recognise both? Or is the body habitualised to a certain space in time? Can you change that? And then can you just explore part of this? Imagine what shot that's going to play. Imagine what shot this might play if my figure 8 goes that way. That's okay if I want to play a fade. I'm going to move around here, play fades. What about if I want to play a draw? Yeah, the club goes out there. So now I can move around this way maybe. Facilitate that. Play some draws. Explore the space and then move your body around to facilitate the swing in that space. If you set up rigid and you set up square, you're probably not affording yourself much room for error, especially if you've got restrictions in your rotation and things like that. So you're never really exploring your true potential. Kramer, that is awesome. 70 years old, started golf at 65, 89-hour clubhead speed, and after 3 or 4 months of using your GIF board and watching the instruction, you're now up to 102. That is amazing. Well done. ST, how close am I to London? We're coming down to London. I'm going to be hopefully running another golf school at the Golf Groove. Another 3 one-day schools at the Golf Groove. Well, hopefully the end of October. So I'm just having chats at the moment to organise that. That'll be amazing. So keep your eyes peeled just on our socials, and there'll be an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletters and stuff like that if you want. But there's going to be a place you can go for all this info. But just keep your eyes on the socials at the moment, and we'll be promoting it as soon as everything's firmed up. So rotation. So we've gone through this flexion extension, which is also a version of the drop and pop on the tennis balls. So you can start to see where it's going. This is a spiral in there. Now we're really rotating the hip and loading the hip. Can we get out of the ground both ways? Allowing our body to move from side to side and be stable, but allow us to sway too if we need to. Okay, it's affording us scope for movement variability. Do we recognise the golf club moving this way, or have we always used it this way? Can you actually move it from side to side and let it swing this way, or does it swing with you? This is a serious constraint of how you're going to use your body, because if that's how you recognise moving the club, you're pivoting and swinging the club at the same time, you're probably moving the whole thing as a block. Can you, first of all, separate linear here from the angular, from the rotational movement here? It's very different. So this is what we need to, first of all, recognise, because this is going to help you transfer energy through a lagged system, a sequence. But if it's rigid and you've been controlling this, your P2s, your P3s and stuff, that's look, if that works, that's great. I'm not an advocate of any particular style, and I certainly don't dismiss anything. If it helps people, great, and there's lots of people doing great work, so we're all in this together. We're all just trying to contribute and help people. So there's no controversial element to this or what we do. There's no right or wrong. Nothing I say that's right, someone else says that's wrong. It's all, we just say something different or something similar in a different way. So can we recognise this? Because then there's also this, the figure 8. So there's infinity here. This is another infinity exercise. Can you do that? Because this is now a drop and pop of the golf club. Because your golf club's going to go up and down and side to side and rotate. Okay, your centre of mass is going up and down, and it's rotating. It's moving backwards and forwards and side to side. But from this perspective, it's going up. It's going along and up, down and back up again. Centre of mass is doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing. So, are we able to move in a way that's allowing us to tap into all this? Okay, or are we restricting ourselves, trying to control the swing, and then we get some kind of fault and I need to fix it? No, you don't. First of all, tonight, go through loading, unloading. Wrecking ball. First of all, isolate it. Feet together, I would start with. Half a step each side, arms locked out like iron rods. Pokers. So it's coming from there. Then go the other way first. Get used to that movement. So the shoulders are doing this. Then feet in a normal stance. We also explored lead side. Loading. Okay, that's heavy. It's heavy stuff. All we're doing, this is not a position, guys. It's not a stack and tilt. All I'm doing is compressing my left lateral line. I'm loading. I'm just letting myself and then extend it. It's like being in a gym and doing a lat pull down. Okay, but I'm doing it with the whole body. in some lateral flexion. You're just doing some training. That's all it is. Which is going to help you function better overall when you become more task specific through all the, because these exercises are also, there's the transition exercises that I'm showing you as well. So there's fundamentals, and then we transition it through. Both sides. You could, from here, open up and swing it back. Notice where the club wants to go, and notice how you can open up and then. So you're loading the hip, then you can spring up. Then when you're on the ground, notice how that feels. Whoa. And you've got the other way with the lead arm. Both hands together. On the board. Lead leg loaded. Twist. Trail leg loaded. Tip it. Twist. Start to feel that torque. That's driven from the hips, but there's a force there being applied to the board, as I mentioned, linearly. Now you can start to really explore it and let the swing go. Now you can use your drop and pop with the rotation and see where that takes you to. Where does that want to take you to? Because you're going to need that finish, because that's a big component of letting you go, letting you create all this movement, because it needs somewhere to go. The ball's not the end of the golf swing. It's not. That's why your practice swings are so different, because we make some of the ball such a focal point, we stop. There's always a hit in a golf swing, whether you like it or not. It's there, we recognise it. It's how we recognise our movement. That changes how we apply the mind. Guys, I hope this has been good. James, do I recommend any of these exercises daily? Some exercises. Definitely at the minute, do these, go in your back garden and swing. Do these in your back garden. Use your patio doors, use a window, and just do them and get a feed. So you've got some feedback. So as Kramer was saying there, don't use the exercises to try and replicate positions or specific movements in a golf swing. Just explore these exercises. I want you to become expert movers. If you can move like this, you're going to play golf to a half decent standard relative to what you want. It's going to be, you're going to be able to explore more of your capability and action it, because first of all you've got to recognise what you possess. So it's opening the door to improving your golf in a way that is going to allow you to develop, move freely, and not continually tell yourself like a school child what you can and can't do. You're going to go and have some fun. It's going to be a playground. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Time-wise, we have, as I always do, overrun, I'm sure. It's 20 to 8. It's getting dark here now. The nights are really pulling in. I don't know what it's like where you are. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I've not managed to answer all your questions. The T-peg height depends on the timing of when you are really going vertical and where your low point is. When you go vertical earlier, the low, and you start to really, with a driver, for example, obviously with a T-peg, could be a 3-wood, but with a driver, you're probably going vertical earlier, the low point's coming back. The more you rotate and side bend, the more you use the ground here, you're going to need that higher peg, okay? If you're in forward flexion, that you're going to be extending. Generally, it's like long hitters, they all use high pegs, don't they? They're trying to hit up as well, maximise the dynamics. So you can take a lot from the long hitters. I've been training some long hitters. There'll be some stuff on the channel about that, which will be amazing, because I think you can pick up a lot from the long hitters. It's just a diluted version, little bits you can take. They're on the extreme end. Long drive is not golf. It's just smashing a ball as far as you can. It's a form of golf, which is amazing, but it's not golf. So, but you can learn from that. We can learn from all movements, and it's very similar in aspects. So there's things we can learn. I'm going to show that on the channel too. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Watch this back. Go find a mirror or use a window. Go do some of these exercises. Get a golf club, swing. Feedback to me in the comments. Feedback what you're experiencing. If you can get to see us in person, that would be amazing. We're going to try and we're obviously trying to make ourselves as available as possible in terms of coming out to see you as well. We have guys come from all over the world every day, every week, and it's amazing. It overwhelms me. It's mind blowing, and it's amazing that it brings us all together. But I want to make myself more available, and we're coming out, we're branching out and doing these tours. And ultimately, guys, hopefully we can get to meet in person. If not, feedback on the comments. It helps me with my tutorials. It helps me just focus on what specific needs are out there, what you're experiencing, and helps me hopefully to help you more. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great evening, and continue with your comments. Let me know what you got from tonight's session, what you'd like in the future, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person. If not, hearing from you, reading your comments, and keeping in touch. Thanks, guys. Take it easy. Have a great night.